How do everybody, and a happy St. George's Day to all of you. It's a shame it's not a national holiday, really, isn't it? Considering that we do a much better job of celebrating other people's holidays. But hey ho, I guess that's the problem of being an Indigenous Englishman. You don't get the same treatment that the New Britons do get. But anyway, on to the topic at hand. While we're talking about St. George's Day, I'm sure many of you have seen the protest that, well, I say protest, it was just supposed to be a gathering to celebrate St. George's Day in London. And I just want to talk about the difference in treatment that obviously the people there have had today and what, say, Palestine protesters or Just Stop Oil activists or BLM rioters have received from the police in the past. They've been heavily accosted by the police, massively kettled in, and like we saw on Remembrance Sunday, where many people wanted to get to the cenotaph, the police, I believe, have gone really far out of the way to try and antagonise a rather negative reaction from the crowd. In that, there's plenty of videos floating around online, easy enough for you to go find them. I'll see about putting a link below if I can find any video footage myself again rather quickly. But as I say, plenty of videos out there. And it's just shocking, really, that the police are openly behaving in such a way. And this comes off the back as well of Tommy Robinson being found completely cleared from when he got pepper sprayed and dragged off by 20 police officers. I think it was last year now, that, wasn't it? Absolutely disgusting. I guess they didn't like the fact that he was having two sausages and it was too English for him on that day. But he's been completely cleared on all charges. And the police have admitted that it was basically admitted that it was completely unlawful. And I would suspect then also illegal, including the pepper spraying of him, because he had every right to be there. So the police absolutely should not have engaged in that kind of behaviour against him. Again, shocking. Absolutely terrible behaviour that they're able to get away with doing that. He has also said that he's going to sue them. That was on his X today. Zitter, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. I'll see about putting the link for that as well. I'll just write that down one moment. And I'm back. But anyway, yeah, so he's going to sue him, and I don't blame him because he absolutely has been singled out because of who he is, and that is what it comes down to. The police are really got a dislike for him, probably because he's made an embarrassment of him. And again, this sort of treatment is nothing new, as we saw last week with a man who had the temerity, the absolute shocking attitude to be, and how dare he be openly Jewish in public. How dare that man walk around with a kippah on his head? Now, I'm obviously being hyperbolic there. He's got every right to do that, as does somebody who is a Muslim or a Christian or a Hindu or a Sikh or an atheist or whatever you want to be. Or if you want to be publicly homosexual, you're allowed to be. That's the country we live in. And it is disgusting that the police had that interaction with him. Now, I do get why, the theory behind it. He's a man on his own. And there's a crowd behind the police officers who are incredibly hostile towards Jewish people in general. But you know what? The police should be policing them. Well, this is the problem with the policing tactics, because the policing tactics at the moment are all about de-escalation. So the fact that the police have actually moved that man along and got rid of him, even though they've had to do a grovelling apology, and to be honest with you, the first response was absolutely disgusting, where they doubled down on it. That was terrible. You know, we're talking like Germany in sort of 1930s level of worrying, and the police engaged in that as well. Very worrying. And I'm just want to be very clear here, by the way. I am no sycophant for Israel or for Jewish people in general. I have no dislike for them either, or for Israel. I'm completely impartial in regards to them. I base people generally on individual merits. So Jewish people as a collective, I couldn't care less. I really couldn't. But I don't want ill will to them, and I don't think that they should be stopped from walking around in Jewish attire in public. Now, I don't want to live in a Talmudic society. I certainly don't want the Talmud pushing into our laws or into our culture or anything like that. Not because I have anything particularly against it. I just don't think it's fundamentally incompatible with the way that we live here in Britain. And if people want to live a Talmudic lifestyle, by all means, go live in Israel. You're free to leave, and please do. Not that I hate you or dislike you, but Israel is a Jewish country. And same, as I say, with people who are Muslims. If you don't like the country, you don't like with that school in London, you want your kids to pray in school, and you think all schools should have to allow prayers, well, go live in an Islamic country if you don't like it. It's that simple. But if you're okay with not necessarily being able to follow your rules that you want to live by fully, then by all means, live in Britain. But follow our rules and our example and our way of living, and respect the way that we choose to live. And if you don't like it, once again, leave. That's to everybody. Leave. And that includes Anglo-Saxons as well. If you're an Anglo-Saxon and you don't like Britain, you find it ashamed, you find St. George's Day horrible, leave. But anyway, back to the point. Police tactics. So what the police will do is they are just looking for the route of least resistance to de-escalate a situation. So in that situation, they turn around, look at, say, the 100,000 people, whatever it is, of Palestine protesters and one Jewish man, and the police go, we will persecute the Jewish man, we will trample all over his rights, and we will even make ourselves look like mid-century Germans. We don't care, because that is the path of least resistance, and for them that is a win. And it's why you also see things like say people talking about the grooming gangs, for example, why they will get arrested, because the police will look at that and they will build a wider image from that and say, this is going to cause antagonistic problems within another community. And because that other community are going to engage in X, Y, and Z extreme crimes, it's easier for us to come down on these people who are complaining about these groups instead. And that's why the police engage in those sorts of tactics. I don't agree with it. I'm not promoting it. I'm certainly not condoning it. But that is the reason why they do it. They will gladly trample all over every single one of your God-given rights if it means that is the path of least resistance. And they will happily go to court and get told off by a judge. Because to them, behind closed doors, they were saying, well, that's how we're supposed to do it. That is just the way that they do it. It's wrong. They shouldn't do it like that. They should be absolute. Doesn't matter which. Even if all the Palestine protesters have got AK-47s and suicide vests, the police should be dealing with them instead. But I actually wouldn't be surprised if the police, took the meat from them and took the hats off from him and said, yeah, you go freedom fighters, woo, with the way that they're behaving at the moment. And I'm not saying that ironically either, I genuinely mean that. Very, very worrying, the way that, especially the Metropolitan Police at the moment, are behaving. Very, very worrying. But they also, and it's a long time since I've looked at it, but there was something called the Macpherson report, which happened after Stephen Lawrence, who was a young black man who was murdered around the year 2000 by the police. And it was a murder, by the way, and it was horrible. But there was a massive, massive public outcry about it, and his parents are now or at least his mum, is in the House of Lords. It's a shame that none of the victims of any of the Pakistani, Bangladeshi Muslim rape gangs haven't had the same sort of treatment or the same sort of inquiries into the crimes that have happened with them, and special laws passed or their family members put into the House laws. But hey ho, that's the difference between the indigenous population and New Britons. But anyway, the Macpherson report came out, and it specifically put into law that the police have to treat different groups differently. So when we're seeing all this two-tiered policing stuff happening, it's exactly because they have to do that. So when you see them taking the knee for BLM, and when you see them wearing soft shirts and soft hats when they're getting stuff thrown at them by Black Lives Matter rioters, but then you'll see a bunch of football lads getting off a train, and the police will greet them in full riot gear and kettle them and antagonise them into a reaction so they can kick off with them, and they'll take all the ID badges off and all of that sort of stuff. That's because under law they have to treat different groups differently. Again, I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying that is the facts of the matter, at least as I understand it. Now, moving on a little bit, I've said this in quite a few of my videos, and I will link them below as well. The UK is definitely going into a war footing. I've got a Prime Minister's speech text here off the parliamentary website from a speech I think he gave today. And to me, this just absolutely reeks. I'll link this speech in for you as well, so you can read it yourself. It's about halfway down. That we are absolutely going into a war footing, as I've said innumerable times in multiple videos. The writing has just been on the wall in glowing neon letters, as far as I've been able to see, and this proves it as far as I'm concerned. So I'll start here. The Prime Minister decided to quote Winston Churchill from 1934. To urge the preparation of defence is not to assert the imminence of war. On the contrary, if war were imminent, preparations for defence would be too late. That's absolutely true. You've got to be ready for war before the war happens, which is why you'll see, like with Russia, have been doing for the last 15, 20 years, they've been rebuilding their arms industry. And even in the days building up to the invasion of Ukraine, we saw many thousands of troops building up on the borders, and Russia was going, no, we're just playing war games, we're just doing tactical exercises. But it's not. They're not going to declare war while everybody's back in the barracks. They declare war when they're on the border ready to roll over. And it's the same with arming up. So anyway, yeah, so I believe we must do more to defend our country, our interests and our values. So today I'm announcing the biggest strengthening of our national defence for a generation. We will increase defence spending to a new baseline of 2.5% of GDP by 2030. Now, according to NATO membership, it's supposed to be 2%, but the UK has been pulling a bit of a naughty with that, because what they do to bump up our investment in the military is they also include pensions payments into that. So all retired veterans and the contributions towards veterans are included, and that's, I think, if memory serves me right, somewhere in the region of about 0.5% to 0.75% of GDP. So you're talking a huge chunk of our defence spending is going into paying pensions. And wages and things like that. So that's all included in defence spending. So this starts today. The rise steadily in each and every year. Over the next 6 years, we'll invest. He's obviously assuming that he's going to be in power there. At this point, they're not. But whether Labour would be crazy to cut spending. Although I do believe Keir Starmer has actually been speaking about keeping Trident and putting more money into it. So that again, into the nuclear deterrence. So that again says that even Labour are in on this war footing idea. So we'll invest an additional 75 billion for defence. That's over the 6 years, and it will be fully funded with no increase in borrowing or debt. So this is not some vague aspiration for the future. Yeah. Let's go. Where was it? So today we're giving 10 billion in munitions to give industry long-term funding certainty. First, we will put the UK's defence industry on a war. Well, there we go. First, we will put. I knew it was in here somewhere. First, we will put the UK's own defence industry on a war footing. And this is what I've been saying about where they're talking about conscription. Conscription is going to happen. Now, whether they will actually conscript anybody, that's another question, but they will definitely be bringing conscription laws in, and they will be putting people into and they're just getting people used to the idea of it. And using words like this now, putting the defence industry on a war footing. That means we are on a war footing now. We are preparing for war with Russia and China and Iran, I would suspect. Is that we need deeper stockpiles of munitions, industry to be able to replenish them more quickly. There was some numbers down here as well, which I'm going to try to find. Oh yeah, they're going to be giving defence R&D a minimum of 5% of the defence budget. That's quite a lot. This increase in money as well would also make the UK the largest investor in defence in the whole of Europe as well. Second largest in NATO. There was a few other bits. Oh yeah, here we go. So we'll provide the largest ever package to UK military equipment. This will include more than 400 vehicles. Now, what those vehicles are is another question. That could be 400 Land Rovers. Probably not going to be. It's probably going to be like the new armoured Ajax and things like that. 4 million rounds of ammunition, 60 boats and offshore raiding craft, air defences, long-range precision-guided Storm Shadow missiles. We will make a historic commitment to increase defence spending 2.5%. We'll move past this stop-start piecemeal wave back in Ukraine. Yeah, so, Ukraine's absolutely effed at the moment as well. They're lowering the age of conscription down to something, I think, 27, 25, I think it's going down to. I think they're even playing with 20. That's just going to absolutely kill future generations. You're going to end up with just no children in the country. And I think it's gone over 40 as well. I think it's up to 60, the conscription average. I think the average Ukrainian soldier's age now is 40. Now, I'm 40 years old myself. I couldn't imagine running around fighting a war now. I'm not saying I couldn't, but my God, it'd be hard on me. It's like, these are hard. These are a young man's game, I'm afraid, going to war. It really is. Once you get past a certain age, it's just not good. Especially, like, I've been out for years, so it's not going to be good to get loads of young guys. Old guys who've never even thought doing that. Anyway, I've said probably on here, but I won't read any more from that. It's coming up 14 minutes now. I've prattled on enough here. As I say, I'll link that in the description as well. I'll try and put a couple of me military videos in so you can see where the warning signs have been and all that good stuff. Or you can just go into the folder of playlist folder called Military Affairs. They're all in there anyway. All right, speak to you later. Goodbye.